Hey, what's going on, guys? Over the last 24 hours, the UFC has announced a bunch of fights for UFC 298 as well as UFC 299. So I figured I would combine all the announcements into one video and give you a reaction and early prediction to each one of these fights. We're going to start off kind of in order of importance for each pay-per-view card. But we'll start off with UFC 298, which is headlined by Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria. This goes down on February 17th. And it has a very important women's strawweight fight. We are getting Tatiana Suarez versus Amanda Lemos. I think this is a great fight, and I think this is a very important fight for the women's strawweight division because right now in the women's strawweight division, most likely, it's unannounced yet, you will get Weili Zhang defending her belt against Yan Xiaonan, and then it's kind of up in the air what happens next. I believe if Tatiana Suarez goes out there and beats Amanda Lemos, who's currently ranked number 4. Suarez is ranked number 3. I think Suarez will get the next title shot, and that's a compelling matchup. A lot of people have been hyping up Tatiana Suarez for the last 2 years or so, and she has excellent wrestling. She has good submission ability, but she's kind of been inactive. She had some injuries. She sat out for like 2 years. She came back. She fought at flyweight for one fight against Montana De La Rosa, and then most recently she beat Jessica Andrade. But Jessica Andrade kind of showing up for paychecks. Amanda Lemos, regardless of her grappling ability, she got out-grappled in her last fight. She's coming off a title loss against Weili Zhang. She comes to fight. I mean, she had moments against Weili Zhang. She has nasty power in her hands. She's one of the few strawweights that has power in her hands. And Tatiana Suarez doesn't have the best striking. She wants to go out there, grapple, look for the takedown, look for the submission. And I think this is a really good matchup to test how good is Tatiana Suarez, because she did beat Jessica Andrade, but it just seemed like every week it seemed like Jessica Andrade stepping in on short notice. She's just showing up for a check. And she even came out and said that before she fought Mackenzie Dern. Oh, I'm fighting to make some money because I'm getting divorced and this and that. So I don't really know how to gauge Tatiana Suarez's skill level, but I do think she has been very impressive. And I'm looking at Lemos, seeing her getting out grappled by Weili Zhang. And Weili Zhang has really good wrestling, but I think Suarez has some of the best wrestling in the division and has amazing submission ability as well. So for an early prediction for this fight, I have to go Tatiana Suarez. I think she'll out-grapple her, whether she wins a decision that way because Lemos has good BJJ, or she ends up getting a submission. I think Tatiana Suarez will use her wrestling, use her grappling, and will be able to win this fight. Moving up on the card, this is still UFC 298. We have Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura. Tai Tuivasa ranked number 9, Tybura ranked number 10. I think this is a perfect fight, honestly. I think this is great matchmaking by the UFC. You have Tai Tuivasa, who's on a 3-fight losing streak and has taken damage and gotten finished in all 3 of those fights. Alexander Volkov, Sergey Pavlovich, Cyril Gane. And in the Pavlovich fight and the Gane fight, he took a lot of damage. I mean, he took career-altering damage, and he's kind of fighting, pretty close together after taking this damage. He fought in September of 2022, took all that damage against Gane, then had a quick turnaround in December against Pavlovich, then took some time off, returned against Volkov, ended up losing, took some damage there as well, but at least he gets finished via submission. He kind of needs a bounce-back fight, and what a better bounce-back fight than Marcin Tybura. They just did it with Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall got injured. They needed kind of a tune-up fight for Tom Aspinall because they were trying to build him in the heavyweight division. They gave him Marcin Tybura. Tom Aspinall went out there and brutally KO'd Marcin Tybura. So I think they're kind of doing the same thing with Tai Tuivasa. They look at Tybura as kind of a stepping stone and maybe an easy win for Tuivasa. But to be honest, as much as I'm not too high on Tybura's skill level, this isn't an easy win for Tai Tuivasa because Tai Tuivasa, you look at his wins, he beat Derek Lewis, he beat Augusta Sakai, he beat Greg Hardy. Those are his best wins. They aren't very good wins. I've never been high on Tai Tuivasa. He has heavy leg kicks and nasty power, and he relies a little bit too much on his power and his durability, which he's taken so much damage. I don't know where his chin is at this point. I know Marcin Tybura doesn't have like brutal nuclear power, but at the same time, I don't think this is a guaranteed win by Tai Tuivasa. But I do think he is a better fighter than Marcin Tybura. I think he's faster. I think he has better leg kicks. I think he has more power. I think Tybura could kind of, use the distance and kind of kick to the body and try to avoid the big power shots of Tai Tuivasa and win a fight that way. But I see Tai Tuivasa chinning Tybura. I see him getting it done. I think this is a perfect bounce back fight. The heavyweight division's so low level, but every one of the last 3 of Tuivasa's fights have been against some of the upper echelon of the heavyweight division. I think this is a good kind of rebound fight for Tai Tuivasa. He's taken a decent amount of time off, so he's going from September all the way till February the following year. So it's not a crazy amount of time, but it's a decent amount of time off to kind of recover from any injuries he might have had. And I think he gets it done against Marcin Tybura. For an early prediction for that one, I'm going to go Tai Tuivasa via KO. I think Tybura is too hittable, and Tuivasa has nasty power in his hands. Moving on to the last fight that was announced for UFC 298 over the last 24 hours. And this is a fight we've kind of known of for the last couple months, but it hasn't really been official. That is Merab Dvalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. What a banger matchup in the bantamweight division. Number 2 Merab versus number 3 Henry Cejudo. Really looking forward to this matchup. But let's be honest here. I know exactly what the UFC is doing. The UFC is preemptively trying to save Sean O'Malley from Merab. And I know people are going to say, oh, Joey, you're a hater, blah, blah, blah. No, that's exactly what they're doing here. Merab's on this long win streak. He deserves the title fight. But instead, they're making him fight Henry Cejudo. And Henry Cejudo is a guy who has good wrestling, has good takedown defense, but he doesn't really use his offensive wrestling. So I really think the UFC booked this fight in hopes that Henry Cejudo beats Merab, and then Henry Cejudo can fight Sean O'Malley if Sean O'Malley beats Marlon Chito Vera. Now, honestly, a reaction to this fight, I wish it was on UFC 299. This is on UFC 298, which takes place on February 17th in, I think, Los Angeles or in California somewhere. I wish this fight was on 299 because the main event of UFC 299 is Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera too. And I love when you have multiple kind of top 10 matchups within a division on the same card. And also you have an easy backup, even though they're not going to, imagine if Marlon Vera pulled out, they're not going to substitute Marlon Vera for Merab against Sean O'Malley. Absolutely not. But I love this matchup stylistically. Both guys are super high level. Merab with the unlimited cardio, just pressing forward, grinding on guys. Coming off a win over Piotr Jan that I did not expect him to get. And now he's fighting Henry Cejudo, who Henry Cejudo is coming off that Aljamain Sterling loss for the title. Very close fight. And Henry's got good defensive wrestling. I know he got taken down a couple times by Aljo. But Merab, I don't think, even though Merab has more relentless pressure and he'll just shoot takedowns nonstop, I don't know if he has really as good of takedowns as Aljamain Sterling. So this is kind of a weird fight to pick, honestly. I don't know who to pick, but I'm looking at Henry Cejudo, 36 years old, going on 37 years old, will be 37 by the time this fight rolls around. He's fought 1 time since 2020. His last 2 fights were against Aljamain Sterling, Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz fight was a title fight, and I think Henry Cejudo kind of has an overrated resume. He beat Marlon Moraes, that's a solid win, but before that, beats Mel Norris, TJ Dillashaw. Fight before that, got a robbery win over Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. Fight before that, win over Sergio Pettis, fair enough. But I just think he's getting up there in age. Meanwhile, I feel like Merab is hitting his prime. I think, the way he puts pressure on guys, he can just win with positional control. It doesn't matter if he actually gets the takedowns because he's just constantly putting that pressure on you. And it's not like Henry Cejudo has some type of lights out striking. So for an early prediction for this fight, I'm going to go Merab Dvalishvili via decision. I think he'll probably grind this out. I think it'll be a close fight, but I think he'll get it done with positional control, land some shots, looking to get into the clinch, get some control time. I think it'll be a razor close fight, but I think Merab gets it done. But I'm telling you right now, 100%, the UFC booked this fight to protect Sean O'Malley from Henry Cejudo or from Merab Dvalishvili. They're hoping Henry Cejudo is the next fight for Sean O'Malley. I think that's what they're really hoping for. Or maybe not Henry, but they're just hoping Henry knocks off Merab. And then Henry, stylistically, is looked at as a more favorable matchup for Sean O'Malley, even though I'm not saying either one of these guys would be an easy matchup for O'Malley, but it's crazy. Merab's on this long winning streak, and he's not getting a title fight. I know people say, oh, he turned it down against Aljamain Sterling. I've already done a full video on this a while ago. That is a myth. Not at one single point in time was Merab the number 1 contender while Aljamain Sterling did not have a fight. That does not exist. That does not exist. That does not exist. He has never turned down a title fight because he was never offered a title fight. He was never number 1 contender. But I think Merab gets it done, and I think he should get the next bantamweight title fight if he beats Henry Cejudo. He's on a long win streak. If we're going off of any type of merit-based system at all, even just 10%, Merab deserves the next bantamweight title fight. Moving on to UFC 299, which takes place on March 9th. The headliner is Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera 2. we have Curtis Blaydes versus Jailton Almeida. This is a really good heavyweight matchup. We're going to find out how good Jailton Almeida is. This is the fight that was supposed to take place at UFC Brazil. Blaydes had to pull out with an injury. Derek Lewis stepped in, and then Jailton Almeida he turned up a turd performance. He couldn't finish Derek Lewis. He just took him down, laid on him. It was just, Jailton Almeida's stock went down with a dominant win over Derek Lewis. That's craziness. But now he's fighting Curtis Blaydes. Number 5, Curtis Blaydes. Number 7, Jailton Almeida. Love this fight. I think this is a difficult stylistic matchup for Jailton Almeida because Curtis Blaydes has really good takedown defense. He has good wrestling offense. And Curtis Blaydes is a massive heavyweight. Derek Lewis at some points was scrambling out and almost ending up on top. So imagine if Curtis Blaydes does. Curtis Blaydes is going to be able to hold you there, control you, beat you up. Plus he has decent striking. Plus he has decent power on the feet. This is a tough matchup for Jailton Almeida. And he's kind of one of those guys that's in between heavyweight and light heavyweight. He's not really a massive heavyweight at all. And he's coming off a win over Derek Lewis, coming off a win over Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Before that, Shamil Abdurakhimov. Not all that great of a win. And then before that, the Pleasure Man, Anton Turkalj. So he doesn't have this amazing resume that you kind of think of when you think of, oh, Jailton Almeida has looked really good. He's looked really dominant. And now he's taking on Curtis Blaydes, who I know Curtis Blaydes coming off a loss against Sergey Pavlovich, but he got chinned early in that fight. We didn't really get to find out that much about him in that fight. Then before that, he has the win over Tom Aspinall, who's the interim heavyweight champ. We didn't really get to see a whole lot in that fight as well because Tom Aspinall injured his knee, then got wheeled out in the world's smallest chair. But I will say Blaydes was landing some good combinations early. So I think this is kind of a nightmare matchup for Jailton Almeida because Blaydes has decent enough striking. He's a massive heavyweight and he's a strong wrestler. So I think this is going to be difficult for Almeida. Almeida, with his striking, it's pretty lackluster. He has some front kicks, deep kicks to the body, but that's really it. His entries are kind of sloppy. He's kind of a jiu-jitsu specialist. And I don't know if he's going to be able to go out there and try to manhandle Curtis Blaydes. Curtis Blaydes is too big for him. Unless Almeida puts on a lot of size in between fights, I think I have to go with Curtis Blaydes in this matchup. I think Curtis Blaydes, with his wrestling base, I think he'll be able to stuff the takedowns. I think if he does get taken down, he'll be able to avoid the submission. That's kind of up in the air a little bit, but he's never been submitted. But there's not really a lot of guys with the BJJ skills of someone like Jailton Almeida. But I just think Curtis Blaydes is too big. It really comes down to that. He's too big. He's too strong. He'll be able to fend off some of the takedowns. And I just think that Jailton Almeida, if he can't get a takedown, I think he's getting outstruck. Curtis Blaydes has decent striking and he has power on the feet. So maybe this is crazy, but for an early prediction for this fight, I'm honestly thinking Curtis Blaydes by KO. I think Curtis Blaydes can KO Jailton Almeida and send him down to light heavyweight. I think he's just too good on the feet for Jailton Almeida, and Curtis Blaydes isn't even the best striker in the division, but too good on the feet, has good wrestling, has good power, and the size is going to be a big problem for Jailton Almeida. He's not going to be able to bully Curtis Blaydes the way he did Derek Lewis, and even he had some moments where Derek Lewis was able to scramble out, and then he also didn't have the greatest stamina. We've seen Curtis Blaydes go 5 rounds and wrestle. He did it against Volkov, so I have to go Curtis Blaydes in that one. And honestly, I think Curtis Blaydes is going to stuff the takedowns and knock out Jailton Almeida on the feet. Moving on to the next fight for UFC 299. This is the last fight we're going to talk about. And ironically, I think this is probably one of the more compelling fights on this list. We have Mateusz Gamrot versus Rafael dos Anjos. Number 6 Gamrot versus number 11 RDA. This is taking place at lightweight. Obviously, Gamrot is a lightweight fighter. But one thing that's weird is Dos Anjos hasn't fought at lightweight in a while. Why is he even still ranked at number 11? The last time he fought at lightweight was all the way back. It was a catchweight against Renato Moicano. So he hasn't fought. This is crazy. He hasn't fought at lightweight since he fought Paul Felder back in November of 2020. Literally like half a year before I ever even started the channel. How is he still ranked number 11? That's craziness. But I think this is an interesting matchup. I think it's a good fight. I think Gamrot, his hands leave a lot to be desired, but he does have good wrestling and grappling skills. But RDA has had a problem with grapplers over the course of his career. But there's one thing you have to take into account. When he's had problems with grapplers, it's usually at 170 pounds. You're looking at Michael Chiesa. You're looking at Leon Edwards. You're looking at Kamaru Usman. You're looking at Colby Covington. I don't remember, and maybe I'm forgetting, I don't remember RDA ever really getting manhandled at lightweight outside of Khabib Nurmagomedov. If there's somebody I'm forgetting off the top of my head, let me know down in the comments. So even though RDA is getting up there in age, I could see him going out there and stuffing takedowns against Gamrot and maybe boxing him up on the feet. Maybe I'm crazy at 39 years old, but I could see that. I could see that as a scenario because RDA, I mean, he had a massive size disadvantage in a lot of his welterweight matchups. And that's what led to him being out grappled in a lot of those matchups. And obviously he did get ragdolled by Khabib at lightweight, but still, and that's crazy. That was on the prelims. I remember specifically a lot of the hardcore fans at that point in time were saying, these two guys could be future champions, and they're on the prelims. This should be on the main card. You know how we complain about that nowadays? And look, sure enough, both RDA and Khabib Nurmagomedov became lightweight champions. But my point is, if you're only getting out grappled by Khabib Nurmagomedov at lightweight, you got some decent grappling. So Gamrot, I know he goes out there and he somehow gets the win. I mean, the Fiziev win, fluky kind of win, doesn't really deserve any credit for it as much as that sucks to say. The fight before that, he beat Jailton Turner, but Jailton Turner took a drastically different stylistic matchup on short notice against Gamrot and still had a close fight with Gamrot. Fight before that, lost to Beneil Dariush. That hasn't aged quite well. He got outstruck by Dariush. So honestly, I could see RDA pulling this off in the lightweight division. Fight before that has a win over Saryukian, but I think that was a robbery. So Gamrot has this weird resume where his only real definitive wins are like Jeremy Stevens, Diego Fajeda, and Scott Holtzman. And I know you could say the Jailton Turner win was definitive, but that was on short notice, so that kind of has an asterisk next to it. But my biggest takeaway from this fight is how does RDA still in the rankings not having fought in the lightweight division in almost 4 years? Makes absolutely no sense. But for an early prediction for this fight, something's telling me to go RDA, but I'm going to say Gamrot. I just can't trust RDA at 39 years old, having difficulties with grapplers in the past. I know Gamrot doesn't have the best hands, but I think he's going to go out there. He'll be able to mix in the takedowns. He'll probably be able to get some takedowns on RDA. Because of the threat of the takedowns, I think Gamrot will be able to land some striking on the feet as well. And I'm going to say Gamrot gets it done over RDA, probably via decision. Gamrot's not going to go out there and KO him. RDA's fought the who's who and basically the UFC, and he's barely ever been finished by KO. He has 3 losses via KO in his entire career, and he's been around forever. 32-15 is his record. So, and when's the last time he's been KO'd by someone? I don't even remember. It's been a long, long while. I'm trying to look right now, and I just don't see him getting finished via KO or TKO. I want to say, did he KO? Yeah, I can't even find it. I don't even know if he's ever lost via KO in the UFC. I'm trying to think about it right now, but I can't remember one. So I don't even think, no, it was Eddie Alvarez for the title. I knew there was one. So he lost to Eddie Alvarez for the title. I think a long time ago, he might have got chinned by Jeremy Stevens. Yes, because he's been in the UFC for so long. That was before I was even watching. It's back in 2008. RDA's been in the UFC since 2008. I started watching the sport in 2010. That's crazy. So he has been chinned before, but we're talking 2008 and we're talking 2016. So it's been 7 years since he's been chinned. Gamrot's not known for his power or his striking at all. So I'm going to go Gamrot. I think Gamrot's going to win via decision just with positional control in the clinch with the takedowns. I think RDA's too old. He's slowing down. He's kind of on his way out of the sport and he's on the decline. I think Gamrot gets it done. But a lot of great fights. I think UFC 298 and UFC 299 are really starting to fill out with some great fights. This is excellent matchmaking. Every single one of these fights, I have to applaud the UFC for making. Outside of that Merab Cejudo fight, even though I love the matchup, I think Merab should have got the title fight. Love all these fights. Let me know what you guys think of the predictions down in the comments. Who are you picking in these fights? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. And thank you so much for watching.